The record came out in '89, so I still wasn't even legal. Like some of the places I went, I could go in and do sound check and I'd have to leave. They were like, this dude's underage. He can't be sitting around in here while y'all are partying.
What happened on the Warrant tour? Because Janie Lane made it 31 shows, I think, and then left.
He put a dot on the wall and he goes, this is you. And he drew a circle around it and goes, this is everybody's going to be digging in your pocket. And we went, great. Where do we sign up? Sounds amazing. And Phantom Rider was really the one that it got on the radio, and it actually became a top 5 requested song. I think there was 6 labels that got in a bidding war for the band. Every Mother's Nightmare, Roxy Blue, all those guys, we were all growing up at the same time.
I'm going into the second record, are you like, here we go, this is the one?
Right. And that's when A&M sold to Polygram. But I remember getting the call from the management company, and they said, hey, it's not, if your record's coming out, it's not going to come out, they're going to shelve it. I remember going into markets, and we were doing in-stores and all that, and people would come up and go, I can't find your record. We played shows with Alice in Chains. I remember meeting them, and we didn't think they were different. We just said, it's just another rock band. Go to the warehouse, Tora Tora. And we're like, it's on the radio, man. Everybody in the world's going to hear about this. And I walked out on stage, man, and the light hit the spotlight from the top of the building, hit me in the eyes, and I just went, I want to do this the rest of my life. This is the most amazing feeling.
The air metal guru, from Warrant to crew. The air metal guru, never forget Charlie too.
Hey, it's an honor to welcome Anthony Corder to the show. Anthony is the vocalist in one of the coolest and most original bands on the scene, Tora Tora, who put out the phenomenal Surprise Attack album in 1989, and my favorite album of theirs, Wild America, in 1992. They split up for a while, but came back so strong in 2019 with Bastards of Beale on Frontiers Records, and they put out a number of releases on F&A Records, which you can find the link for that in the description. With that, Anthony Corder, welcome to the show.
Hey, Anthony, thank you so much for having me on here, man. This is awesome. I really appreciate your time.
No, I absolutely, and I've done some promotional work with F&A. So I told Doc, I don't know if you've talked to him recently, but I'm like, hey, I'm going to talk to Anthony Corder, so I'm going to make sure I mention F&A in all your releases anyway.
Yeah, Steve's a great guy, man. Yeah. He was very helpful in us getting us organized with a lot of material that we had kind of in the archives, kind of.
Yeah,
that was a really fun period. I think I met him around 2010, 2011, somewhere right around in there. And, we were just talking. I think I met him at some shows here in Nashville.
Yep.
Had seen him out at a couple of things. And he kind of mentioned he had something going on. And I said, you know what, that'd be fun. We have a lot of stuff that's just kind of all over the place. The band had recordings, DATs, and cassettes and all kind of things. So it was a really fun time for us to kind of just go back through and listen to everything and think about what was all. I mean, man, all this stuff brings back so many great memories. We were very lucky being out of Memphis. The scene was kind of like everywhere was kind of exploding. We kind of felt the strip. We were late, to the Sunset Strip when our record is kind of coming out. Because it had been happening there in the early 80s and stuff, but it had kind of spilled over into Memphis through, access to MTV, and we didn't have all the platforms that everybody's got now with social media and the internet and everything. So you only had a couple of ways to get the audience, man, was through radio and MTV. And so we were seeing that. And I don't know, have you ever been to Memphis?
I haven't. I've been to Nashville once.
Okay.
But I've never been to Memphis. So
it's not far. It's about 3 hours down to Memphis. And it's a cool experience. They're very similar. Both cities are really eclectic musically. Like they're known for all kind of different kinds of music. And but you got to do Memphis. It feels a little bit different. It's not quite as corporate as Nashville. I'm based in Nashville. I've been here for 20 years, but I still consider Memphis home.
Sure.
And Memphis has a very unique quality to it, man. From a historical standpoint, I've kind of been an ambassador for the city since I was a teenager, and we've traveled all over the world, and it meant something different to everybody everywhere I went, man. It was, people were talking about the blues, they were talking about Elvis, they were talking about Stax music, Otis Redding and all those cats. And then the rock scene that was coming out of there, because there were some incredible musicians. Jimmy Jameson that ended up singing for Survivor. He started out there. He was actually signed on A&M, the same label we were. He was, years ahead of us, but he was an incredible singer, and he was, inspired us, man. He actually sang on our albums. He did some of the background vocals and stuff. People didn't realize that until they got kind of in the liner notes. But he kind of talked to us a lot about what had happened. He had kind of been through the waves, a couple of waves ahead of us. So, and he was always fun.
Did you ever see the documentary on the band Big Star?
Oh yeah, yeah. For anybody out there listening that's not familiar with the band, we're based out of Memphis, but we signed a production deal with Ardent Studios when we started out. And Paul Ebersole was just happened to be the engineer. We got linked up with him we won a contest in Memphis that won a day of recording. And at that time, we were working on a little EP, a little 5-song EP for ourselves, a little independent collection of songs. And through Paul, we got introduced to Ardent, and he kind of talked to us. He said, "Hey, man, how would you feel about doing a production deal here?" And we were like, "What does that mean? Can we come in and record some more? We want to do that." Yeah. And so he introduced us to John Fry, the owner of Ardent Studios, and he was the guy that had produced all the Big Star stuff. Yeah. So he became a father figure to me. It's really funny, man. Our relationship really sustained our relationship even outside of Tora Tora, man. On a personal level, he was a really huge inspiration to me and had a huge impact on me personally. Yeah. When the band was kind of out of the record deal and I was kind of struggling along as an independent artist, I met my wife and I was trying to make the next step as my children were born, what I was going to do. And I ended up going back to school. I went and got my bachelor's and my master's degree in the entertainment industry. The digital realm had rushed in. The whole way of doing business, how we were doing it, had changed, and I didn't really have a lot of experience or education in that area. So I went in, and one of the reasons I got into college was John Fry wrote me a letter of recommendation. I had left high school to do the rock and roll thing, so I had to have a couple of letters of recommendation. He did it, and another, my first manager, Richard Sanders, he wrote me a letter and got me into the University of Memphis. And I created a degree of my own in the entertainment business to kind of study it. And it's been an adventure, man. I've been in the industry now for over 35 years. Yeah. And it's been a crazy ride, but I'm still a creative person first. I've worked at the major record labels. I worked in publishing for about 8 years. I taught at Belmont and at the SAE Institute. I was their entertainment business chair. So it's been a learning process for my whole life. Our industry keeps changing. I think that's why I love it so much. Is you kind of have to every day get up and there's something new going on with technology or some new company or some new way to do your business. So that part of it keeps me inspired and excited. And but anyway, I didn't mean to get totally way off on that. But John Fry had a huge a part of me doing that. Every decision I made in my life from the time I was about 16 or 17, I talked to him until he passed away in 2014. Yeah. And I miss him tremendously. We talked, and I would make big decisions about working at labels or publishing and things like that would have a impact on me professionally. Yeah. And he would always pick the phone up and talk to me. I knew he was putting out 1,000 fires and dealing with his own stuff, but he would always sit and talk to me about what was going on. And so he kind of knew me as the artist first. And it was really funny when we first met him. He took us in a little conference room, and he was telling us what was going on with the production deal. And he put a dot on the wall, and he goes, "This is you." And he drew a circle around it and goes, "This is everybody's going to be digging in your pocket." And we went, "Great. Where do we sign up? Sounds amazing." Right. So he was kind of our buffer. Between they did the production deal, they cut 4 tracks on us, and then Jody Stevens, the drummer for Big Star, was actually part of Ardent Studios at the time. He's still there, and he was kind of a marketing person there that was connected to all the record labels. They had just gotten a guy named John Kilzer signed to Geffen Records about the time we walked in the door. So we were very lucky, the timing of what was going on. So he had all those contacts and had already had recent meetings And so he had access, and that's what everybody needs, you know.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking for a way to get in. And so they were amazing. I still talk to Jody. We still laugh. He's been actually traveling a lot on the road recently. And I called him to invite him to something I was doing in Memphis. And he goes, I'm passing you on the interstate. You're going to Memphis and I'm coming to Nashville.
Right.
So he's busy and he's excited. And anyway, it's been Ardent and that Big Star connection and linking us to Ardent. That's been with me my whole life.
Sure.
I still love Ardent, and
Sure.
they have every recording we did for about 6 years while we were on A&M Records. If we weren't on the road, that's where we were hanging out. So
Were
it's
there
amazing.
any bands? Were you in any bands before Tora Tora?
I was in a couple of like, you know, kind of neighborhood
Sure.
jam people.
Yeah.
I've recently, this is so funny, maybe a week and a half ago, I met the guy that helped me become a singer. He was a guitar player, a friend of mine. His name's Mike McDonald. He's a freaking scorching guitar player.
Yeah.
When we were young, when I met him, I think I met him when I was in about the 10th grade in high school. He was one of those cats that just locked himself in a room. His mom bought him a Charvel, like pink Charvel electric guitar. And I think he had like a Les Paul, maybe it was a studio Les Paul guitar at first. And he was just one of those dudes. He was sitting in his room just jamming on George Lynch and Dokken and Rat. And I mean, he was learning those chops. And this dude, he could tear the strings off a guitar. But anyway, we got to messing around at his house, and he kind of had like a little drum kit. Like I think it was a snare and a hi-hat and a bass drum, just enough for us to keep a beat. And I was kind of knocking around on the drums, and he was playing, and he said, man, we need somebody to sing, you know? And I was like, maybe I'll just yell over the drums while I'm keeping a beat.
Yeah.
And so we kind of started messing around a little bit like that. And then, you know, that led to us starting to thinking about maybe writing a little bit together. We were thinking of ways to be creative and things that were inspiring us. So he kind of got the juices going, and we ended up that we recruited a couple other guys from our high school, and we did like a high school, you know, talent show kind of thing, and did a couple of house parties together. And he's very inspiring. I mean, we're one of those kind of friends that no matter how much time passes, we just see each other the same way we did a long time ago, and we just kind of start laughing and talking. And he's still super creative. He's got a great studio. He's done a lot of work in Memphis, and he's actually done a lot of stuff up here in Nashville. So we stay in touch. I would see him at some of the Tora gigs and things like that through the years, and here recently, and we've been meaning to connect. And he actually came to visit me here at my house. He was up here looking at guitars and stuff in Nashville, and we got together about a week ago. And you know, it just brings back a lot of memories. It makes you very inspired. And we were kind of talking about all the things that got us started and the friends that we had that we played with and all that stuff. And you kind of remember why you got in it in the first place, of having a good time. And
Totally.
so we did that. But pretty quickly after that is when I bumped into to Patrick. He went to the same high school as I did in Memphis. Patrick Francis, the bass player, and myself were at one school, and the drummer and John Patterson, the drummer, and Keith Douglas, the guitar player, went to another high school. And the really funny thing is Patrick and Keith, our bass player and guitar player, have known each other since they were like 8 or 9 years old. They lived in the same neighborhood, even though they ended up going to different schools and all that. So they've known each other for a long, long time. And, you know, Patrick had just bumped into me. I'm kind of, you know, dating the story of where everybody used to hang out, but he came up to me at the mall and he said, hey, we're having some auditions. Do you want to come over and try out, you know, to sing with us? And man, I was so nervous. I thought they were so advanced and successful. I had heard that they had been in the studio. They had played some gigs down in Midtown in Memphis. And, you know, we were just a little group of neighborhood guys, the people I was playing with. So I was super nervous. I was like, these guys are already professionals. And, you know, I took my acoustic over, and I think I was going to try to do like some kind of singer-songwriter thing to kind of showcase my voice. You know, I said, I'll take my little guitar and I'll go over. And, you know, I walked in and I started strumming something like a Eagles song, Desperado or something, to show my voice off, and then like maybe a Journey song or something. And they just kind of stopped me before I even started playing. They just went, "Hey man, you know Tush by ZZ Top, or you know Rock and Roll Zeppelin, or do you know 2112 by Rush?" They just started, "I Want You to Want Me by Cheap Trick." They had like a little list of ideas.
Yeah.
And I said, "I think I could fake my way through it, if you play it." And so right away, that was over. I went and met them at Patrick's house. And it was so funny. I'll never forget it, man. It's so vivid in my mind. They were set up in the living room, man. John had a set of drums, and he had rototoms like Neil Peart. They were little, like a little 10-inch, rototom or whatever. And he had his kit set up, and Keith had two amps that were on each side of the room, like sitting in the chairs in the living room. And I think one was a Marshall and one was a PV, maybe. But anyway, they did 2112, and Keith hit his guitar and he goes dun 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 dun, and it bounced between the. And I went, "Oh my God, these guys sound like so amazing!" And I thought it was funny because they did kind of that first half of that side. There's not any singing; it's all instrumental, and I was just kind of humming. And then we did Temples of Syrinx. We kind of jumped into that, and that was the only time I sang. And that was like maybe I don't know, 20-minute song or something. I don't remember, but anyway, we thought that was just kind of really awesome. We started off kind of doing that, and we just felt like, I think that very first time that we all got together, that there was some like chemistry, and
Yeah.
I was super timid and intimidated. I mean, they were already up kind of jamming, and Keith and John had played in a band together before Tora that was called Lycanthrope, like the werewolf.
Yep.
And it was a 5-piece. They had double guitars, and that was the band that was kind of playing around at they had a gig at a place down in Midtown. I think it was called the Madison House. I heard all this after the fact, but it was a really terrible place. Like, I think one of the windows was knocked out, and they were hanging like a sheet with their logo behind them, on the wall for their backdrop and all this. But in my mind, I was like, these guys have already made it. They've recorded, when I said they'd been in a studio, they had been at a high school in Memphis, had a studio built in it. And so they had gone there, but I didn't realize that's what it was. I just knew they had gone in and recorded something. So anyway, in your mind, when you're young like that and everything, the potential of everything that's going on and the opportunity, and you just got so excited, And one thing that was really awesome about our group was we blended together, and our friends from those social settings all blended together. And it was from like two different neighborhoods in Memphis. And all of a sudden, even if we just threw a party like at somebody's house or in their backyard or whatever, or played a show in town, we had this built-in audience. Automatically. We had a draw, and they were rowdy, and they were kind of a little hell-raising little group of people that would show up. And so we were very lucky that way. When we very first started, we weren't sure the Tora Tora name. We were trying to figure out what we were going to call the band, and we were throwing around a bunch of ideas and stuff.
Did you start as Free Beer or something like that?
That was kind of a running joke, because we were wondering how we could get people to show up. And we said, maybe that would work. I think we had a gig at a place called the College Inn. It was a really tiny, maybe holds 50 people or something. Right. But our pay was a keg of beer, to play. And so we had invited a bunch of people out. I think we went and set up the night before and rehearsed, and then we invited everybody the next night or something. But anyway, the free beer thing was kind of as a joke, but the Tora Tora thing, we weren't sure, but we played a show downtown. It was an open mic night kind of thing that the local radio station sponsored, and the local music store put the back line up. Yeah. So all you had to do was walk up, plug and play, and they advertised it. And the cool thing about in Memphis, where it's geographically located, is when those radio stations broadcast, we're kind of down in the southwestern corner of the state, and it was going over Mississippi and Alabama and Arkansas and the Boot Hill of Missouri up into middle Tennessee. So people came from groves all over the place when they said, "Hey, we're having this rock and roll show, and everybody can get up and jam." And the building we were in was down on Bill Street, which you've never been there. So for your listeners and people watching, it's kind of our tourist strip, and it's got a bunch of clubs. Mostly it's bands doing blues stuff, but they kind of mix everything in. It's you start on one end and it's kind of BB King's and Blue City Cafe, and those are kind of really famous blues things. And then down by King's Palace, and you come down towards Fourth and Bill, and as you kind of cross that block, there was a couple of clubs that were doing all kind of music, pop music and rock and everything. And then the other end of the street really turned into our little centrally located rock and roll center. There was a venue there called the New Daisy on Bill Street, and it would hold about 800 or 900 people.
Okay.
It was empty and had a big stage in it. And it was really funny. We befriended the guy that worked there. We used to go down there and watch music and stuff. And the guy that was managing the building at the time, his name's Mike Glenn. And we owe him a huge debt of gratitude for our crowd and opportunities. He would let us play at his place, and he really encouraged people to do their original music, which is that's really saying something too. At the time, the radio stations and the local community were letting you play original music. They had an original locals only show on the air, and everybody was vying to get their song on there. So you'd hear it on like Friday night, your song would pop on and you'd just freak out, and but they were really encouraging that. And Mike was a big part of that, throwing his events and stuff. And he's just such a character. I mean, I think he pulled into Memphis in a car, and he was there as a boxing promoter. He had like 6 or 7 boxers in a car with him, and they came to Memphis. They went in this theater and they threw an event where professional boxers would box unprofessional people. You could come in on Tuesday night and they'd kind of battle it,
Right.
And we used to sneak in. We were little, but you go in, it was real smoky, and people were in there, and they had a ring in the middle of the room. The stage was off in the distance, and you had a big ring there. And I think he came in, and he was such a success at promoting everything that people that owned the building just said, "Hey, why don't you just stay and manage the place and put on events and stuff?" And so he did. And he was a big part of us gaining a big audience. I mean, we owe a lot to him. We're still friends with him. I still talk to him. He's a great guy. But I don't know that those local shows, when we first went down there to play the Daisy at one of those open mic nights, and we were brand new, we were in the back waiting our turn to go on. I think you could play like 3 songs or 15 minutes, and then they'd pull the plug or have somebody come out and, cut you off.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of standing on the side, and we heard our friends out front, and we were getting ready to go on. They had seen us come in the back, and we're waiting to go on. And they started doing a chant, and it was like the toga chant in Animal House. And it was just Torah, Torah, Torah. And it just started building, and the whole room's doing it. And we're like, oh my God, this is awesome. So, we felt like that was going to maybe stick around for a minute. And of course, it was kind of an ode to the Women and Children First record, Van Halen. We had a really good friend, a girl named Kelly Coffey. She sat next to me in high school, and she was a dear friend of ours, the band and everybody. She was a lot of fun, and she had made a list of names. I don't remember. A lot of people through the years have asked me. They were like, "What are the other names that was on the list?" But I don't remember what they were. But she had a bunch of them on there, and we happened to see the Tora Tora thing, and we were like, "Man, that's the Van Halen intro." When it's sirens and the bomb sirens and all the feedback sound and stuff, and we go, we kind of sound like that. That's kind of what we sound like right now. So it was just so fun, man. That whole group of people, and they kind of launched us. I mean, we've always felt like we're really indebted to the community. And whenever we play at home, if you've never seen us in Memphis, it's really super special because we know everybody in there. When I look at the audience, I've probably stayed out all night with majority of people in the room. We probably almost gone to jail a couple of times. And but we see them there, and people I went to high school with. I played football when I was in 9th grade with some of those cats, at a totally different school in Memphis before I met the band. And it's just tight knit. And it's now they're getting to where they're bringing their children, and I'm meeting their kids. And, it's just so weird to be in this part of your life now doing this stuff. But it's a lot of fun. And, Ardent was a big part of that. The people down at the New Daisy were a big part of it. We have a lot of people. It took a village to kind of do what we were doing. And here recently, over the past few years, I've been doing this acoustic shows. It's kind of a storyteller's thing. I started doing it during COVID.
Yeah.
We couldn't tour And just one night I was thinking about it. We had been really busy in 2019 and toured all over the place. And we were probably busier that year than we'd have been in probably 20 years. And we had a record out and we were out supporting it. And then all of a sudden, we couldn't tour anymore. And I know you remember that. It was
Yep.
March of 2020 or whatever. Everybody just kind of pushed pause. But I was sitting around one night and I just said, man, I miss everybody. I want to just get on here, maybe say something and play a song. And as soon as I did it, people jumped online and they said, would you do that again? We're all
Yeah.
sitting at home and nothing's going on. And I think the first time I did it, it was on a Thursday night at like 9 o'clock. I was just kind of freaking out thinking about everybody. And so I moved it. I said, what if I do it on a Sunday afternoon when the sun's going down, like a sunset session,
Yeah.
and just play like 2 or 3 songs and just really check on everybody. And man, it just turned into something where everybody would tune in. We're still doing them. I still do them if I'm not traveling or if the schedule allows.
Sure.
And it's been almost 5 years of us doing that, and it kind of led to people ask as things started opening up again. They said, "Hey, would you come do that acoustic thing? And tell us the stories you were talking about and all that." So it's given me a chance to kind of reflect, because people like John Fry that took a chance on us, and the songwriters that we work with, the studio we were working at, the producers and all that. I mean, those were all the people that were contributing. When we came in to do a show, you see us for an hour or 90 minutes or an opening slot for 45 minutes or something. We kind of come in and blow your head off and maybe do a ballad. And then we move on, and you don't realize there was all these people behind the scenes that made us get there and got in front of you and contributed. And
Yep.
so, and maybe this too might be my age. I'm older now. And my children are older. I'm kind of been in this reflective kind of state of mind lately, and
Amen.
it's been an incredible journey, and I'm still super inspired. Keith and I talk about it all the time, that we still genuinely enjoy just being creative with each other. We still send each other music all the time. And I saw him maybe 3 weeks ago, a month ago, and it had been a second since I had talked to him. But
Yeah.
or at least we talk on the phone and text and all that all the time, but I hadn't seen him in person for a minute. And I told him, I was like, man, we can't go this long without seeing each other. We got to get together, because you kind of get the energy going again. And when you're together, but thank God for things like we have now, technology, Zoom and everything that saved us during COVID, but anyway, that all that stuff's fun. And those acoustic things are really fun because I get to recognize all those folks.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people don't realize the writers that we work with, and definitely one of the contributors was a guy named Thomas Howard. He wrote a bunch of songs with us. He wasn't part of the band, but he was kind of a secret weapon to us because he lived in my neighborhood.
Okay.
And we would see each other all the time. We talked. He played bass, and he was really incredible lyricist. Like he was into more like prog music. He liked Yes and Rush and I like Janis Joplin and Zeppelin and all that. So we were kind of clashing all the time about music, and it was kind of a good kind of friendly banter, about it. But as I started to get to know him, man, I would go over to his house and he would just have stacks of poetry and stuff that he had written, and I was like, I really like doing music and melody. So I was like, hey, let me tinker around on my guitar and maybe we could take some of your lyrics and put it to it. And he ended up writing a bunch of songs. I mean, Hard Times on the record, a lot of people don't know he was that. He did Phantom Rider he and I wrote that one. He did Being There.
Is this before you were signed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We met each other in my neighborhood. And I always tell the story about him on my acoustic shows. I lived in a little ranch house when I was growing up, and every night at the same time, just like clockwork, I would walk through and go, good night, Mom and Dad. And I'd go in my room and I'd shut my door, and I could look out my window, and Thomas was walking his dog. He had a little black dog named Fred every night. And I would see the cherry of his cigarette coming down the sidewalk, and my screen was knocked out of my window. So I would just crawl out the window, and it'd be, 10 o'clock or whatever time he was walking the dog every night. And we would just sit on the sidewalk and just stare at the sky and just talk about music and be like, wouldn't it be crazy if we recorded something? And that was like a big deal, and then it became, wouldn't it be crazy if we recorded it and it got on the radio? And then all of a sudden things were getting on the radio, and I don't know. It was just so fun. We're still real friendly. I still talk to him, and I'll be in Chicago or some rando airport at baggage claim, going to a show, waiting on a ride, and I'll call him and go, "Hey, you remember Phantom Rider right now? I'm fixing to go sing this to a bunch of people. It's 35 years later, and I'm going and sing this to a bunch of people."
Yeah.
So it brings back a lot of great memories. And I mean, he's still super creative and still an incredible writer and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but those are the kind of people that you kind of want to,
Sure.
recognize. And
Yep.
we were very lucky. We wrote with so many killer writers, and Ardent was really key to everything because they really wanted you to experiment and to kind of educate yourself about the way that things worked and all that stuff. I mean, I remember just being in there for hours, like locked in a little closet with a keyboard. It was just me, and maybe I had like a saxophone sound going, or I don't know what I was doing, but I was in there just trying to be creative and come up with parts and all that. And they would just laugh. They'd be like, "You've been in there in that closet?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, I freaked out. I got on this computer, on this keyboard, and I'm like thinking of stuff now. And I want to take this to the band." And I think John Fry kind of ingrained that in everybody that was part of his organization. He was a fountain, and he wanted people. He was doing it when he was growing up. They came along when technology didn't exist the way that it even did when we were starting. If they wanted something or a piece of equipment, they had to like build it. They had to put everything together and solder it and all that. And so by the time we were coming along, that's when like drum machines and the Fairlight computer and all that stuff were all coming out. And I mean, they were freaking out at Ardent. They were just, all the people working for him were trying to be on the cutting edge. And, when he was growing up, they were chasing George Martin and the Beatles. That's what he wanted he wanted his quality. And now if you listen to his recordings of Big Star, I mean, they're immaculate. They stand the test of time. They're awesome. And so we were just very fortunate to be, linked to them.
When did you notice that Tora Tora, like you talked about, you meet the guys, you start, planning on, you're playing some shows here and there. When do you notice that we kind of have a name, like people are starting to talk about us on that scene?
That was definitely geared towards the support we got from local radio.
Yeah.
Our songs got on the, there was two rock stations in Memphis. One was Rock 103 and the other one was Rock 98. Both of them had local shows. Rock 98, there was a DJ that came in named Malcolm Riker, and he was kind of a rock and roll looking dude. He loved Kiss. He was out all the time at all the events and stuff. And for some reason, I don't know why, he just took to our band. He became very, I mean, he befriended everybody in the community. He was helping everybody, but for some reason, he kind of befriended us. And we got a couple of our tracks on the radio off that little EP. We would hear a couple of them. We wrote a song called Time on the Edge. It was a slow song, but it was kind of like our graduating class. We played a show at my school, like a talent show, and we played that song. Yeah. And that got a little bit of attention in the community. But when we really started getting stuff like Love's a Bitch, got on his show, the title track to Rock to Roll was on there for a minute. And then Phantom Rider was really the one that it got on the radio, and it actually became a top 5 requested song, like regionally. It was playing outside the locals only. It was getting in rotation. And I think that kind of got the people's attention from the record companies. I remember the guy that signed us was a guy named Brian Huttenhauer. And he said, "I knew I was going to sign your band." He said, "I flew to Memphis and I got in my rent-a-car. I picked my car up at the rental place." And he said, "When I got in and turned the radio on, your song was playing." Right. And it was on when he's just randomly getting in the car. And we were like, "Oh, wow, this is pretty cool." And so I think it was due, and it wasn't just us. It was a lot of bands in Memphis at the time. Roxy Blue was there. There was a guy named Bernard Dissect. He had a band for his namesake, Dissect. They were really good. Yeah. There was a band called M. Slider that I ended up hooking up with that guitar player years later. Yeah. We did some stuff together. But there was this momentum in the whole community. They had a producer showcase. So they were having record label people come, and they would come to that big venue, the Daisy, that was about an 800 seat place. And it'd be packed full of people, and it'd be all kind of music, not just rock, but everything. But definitely the kind of Sunset Strip vibe was definitely associated with our age group.
Sure.
it was people walking around in leather coats and they had their hair spiked up and was outside smoking. And, you're like, oh, yeah, man, we're getting in the thick of it. We're having fun. And I know I left off a couple of local bands that ended up being really good. Every Mother's Nightmare, Roxy Blue, all those guys, we were all growing up at the
Oh,
same time.
I'm a huge fan of Roxy Blue and Every Mother's Nightmare.
Yeah, they're great guys, and they're still putting out killer music, man. Todd is an incredible writer, and Rick, man, is writing some of his best stuff. I mean, he's still killing it.
Yeah.
Their bands are awesome, but there was that momentum, and it was competitive. Like you couldn't help it, and especially our age, you're kind of cocky and stuff when you're little like that. But it was also a camaraderie thing where we were kind of seeing each other all the time. You go to other people's shows, you would see it, and even though you're kind of competing with each other, if somebody got attention, it kind of helped the whole community. It's like that, the rising tide helps all the ships or whatever kind of vibe.
Yep.
And so we saw that where people were getting attention. And what I was telling you before about those showcases that the radio was doing, when they were pulling all that talent from all those different areas, we didn't realize it then, but some of those people were super established that had been around for years that were coming in and doing these free open mic just to get the exposure. The guys there announcing, from the radio station. And I remember there was a group called the Tony Spinner Project that was, man, they were killer. I mean, they would just blow your mind. And I remember seeing Eric Gales for the first time, at the Daisy playing. And so there was a lot of activity. A lot of studios were active. A lot of record companies were coming. And I think that was due to that. The community was kind of embracing original music. There were still a lot of cover bands, but the original thing was kind of having its moment where people could get out and they would actually go out and support people. You'd have, stack the bands together. There would be 3 or 4 of you together and you could do your original music. And if each band was bringing a handful of people with them, the room would get full all of a sudden. And I've watched that through the years over and over, kind of cycle through in different communities and different music scenes where you see that, where people, even though you are kind of trying to watch out for your own interest, it's kind of like, man, together we can like really build something. We got something kind of going, but with all of us together, we can do something really good. So, it was like that. And I mean, we laugh about it. There was definitely, you were vying for spots, so those kind of things, or you would see them do some kind of cool gig and you go, oh God, why didn't we think of doing that? But we kind of had a little bit of an advantage because we had a rehearsal place that was in the middle of town, and it was huge. It was a giant warehouse. Keith's dad is probably the biggest contributor to our success. He rented the space to put in, they were in the glue business, and he put empty 55-gallon drums in the room. And he said, Keith said, hey, we'd like to rehearse over there. And it was right next door to the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis is where we saw all the concerts, Van Halen, AC/DC, Quiet Riot, any huge Rush, everything came and played at that. And so we were kind of catty corner right off of that on the street next to it. And we had this room, and as soon as we walked in, it was a concrete floor. You walked up some steps, you walked in, there was 2 little offices and a little 1-person bathroom. And then when you walked out of that office, it was just a giant open room. And I mean, the first thing when we looked at it, we go, we got to throw a party. This is awesome.
Right.
This place is huge.
Yeah.
And so we pushed all the barrels to wood in. We put plywood on top. We hung black trash bags off the front of the stage. And then we put remnants of carpet, and we put the black trash bags along the wall. And all of a sudden we had our own club.
Right.
Keith's father bought us a giant PA system, and we put it in to rehearse with. And all of a sudden, the stage was there, the PA was there, and there was a set of stairs next to our office that went up to a platform. And we put the mixing board up there in the top of the building where they could sit. We built a bar, of course, we went in and took some 2x4s and built our own bar up there. And so you kind of had a little VIP area, and you could look down on the room, and man, we would throw parties. I found a flyer not long ago that we made, like a homemade flyer, and it had like a little map on it where the party was going to be. And we would fill that place up. I mean, it would be hundreds of people there. It would overflow out into the thing. So we really didn't play out in Memphis a lot. we did at the very beginning, we did a couple of things to just kind of get our name out. But once we had the warehouse, I mean, it got to the point where the guy on the radio station was advertising. He would go to the warehouse, Tora Tora. And we're like, it's on the radio, man. Everybody in the world's going to hear about this. And you would pull in the parking lot and people would be sitting on their cars. They'd be eating food. They had their lawn chairs out. They were throwing Frisbees. And we would go in and you couldn't even walk through the place. It would just be, and we would say, do whatever you want to do. Just don't get hurt. You could drink. People were smoking. We hired a couple of football players from Ole Miss. They worked the door and they took the cover charge. And if anybody bowed up on each other, back then, the one thing I will say about us is we were inclusive. People, it was this, the stoner people, the jock people, the preppy dudes, and everything. They would all come to the party, and every once in a while, somebody would bow up on each other, and we'd just say, grab them and throw them in the sand pile outside. Don't let anybody get hurt. Let's just keep them separated. And we never had too many. I can think of maybe a handful where it got a little bit too rowdy, but for the most part, everybody was in there just to have a good time. And all of a sudden, they're all mixed together. And the stoner guys hugging the preppy guy, and the football players, picking up the stoner dude or whatever, the drunk guy or whatever. But it was all inclusive. And so we've always felt like that we kind of brought people together. And we started out in our community doing that. And then it kind of fed us as we went across to all the places that we toured. We always felt like we wanted to be like that. But I think the momentum thing came from that, from those DJs that supported us right at the very beginning, because that was huge, the exposure that we got off of that. And then once we got the record deal, we had never toured outside of Memphis. We got signed. We wrote the whole record. We recorded it. It took us about a year. We signed in the deal, I think, in 88, and it came out in 89. Yep. And the first place we went was New York. The record guy, A&R person, flew to Memphis. They got in a 15-passenger van with us, and they said, I want to see your face when you see Manhattan, the lights, for the first time. We said, get in. We're not even stopping. We're just going to get in the car and pull over to go to the bathroom. That's it. We're going straight to New York. And we did. And we pulled up, and it was the most beautiful thing we'd ever. I mean, it was just, we just told A&M from that point on, we said, we don't want to go home. We just realized there was a whole big world that we could go and see. And we said, we'll play anywhere, anytime. Just keep us out on the road. We don't want to go home. And we stayed busy for about 6 years. We were, doing runs. We'd go about 8 weeks at a time, and then we'd run home and sleep for about 2 weeks, and then get up and get back on the road again and take off. And but I think that's when we really started feeling it, when we got the deal with A&M and we got in the studio, that's when it really became like, this is like for real. This is gonna, I remember bringing my parents to Ardent Studios, and they're like, hey, they're not just having a couple of beers in the garage. This is like state of the art, and the producers are successful people that have, Joe Hardy had worked on some of the ZZ Top stuff. And Paul was, he was really our link.
Paul Ebertsold?
Yeah. We thought he was more, already kind of established when we first met him, but he was kind of just starting out like we were. And so we kind of grew up together, and he wrote that whole first record with us. He was, introducing us to, I think what was so fun is we didn't know what it was going to sound like. We were kind of searching, and, we knew kind of what we sounded like live. But I mean, when we go back and listen to those recordings now, I remember being a little young person and walking in and going, that is us. What happened? This is amazing. I remember hearing some of the first, like Love's a Bitch and Guilty and those songs, and just went, oh my God, man, these are awesome. And so we are, owe a big debt of gratitude to those guys, because we're really proud of those recordings that we did. We worked on them for a long time, and it's been really fun through the years. I heard John, our drummer, he did a podcast one day, and I happened to turn it on. I was working at home, and I just had it going in the background, and I was listening to his perspective of what happened. Yeah. And it's so weird, the experiences that we describe, because I was so caught up in what I had going on. Yeah. I wasn't thinking like, John's freaking out over here. He's having, and he was talking about playing with the click track in the studio. And at the beginning, he didn't lock in with it. He really fought it, and it was very challenging and a lot of pressure, because back then people would do sessions and stuff. And if you didn't get it, they would just go, hey, we're going to hire a session guy, and he's going to come in and knock it out real quick, and we can move on. You're not going to. And we definitely didn't want that to happen. And we all stood up and said, hey, it's the four of us. We're going to do this until we get it right, whatever. And it wasn't just John, it was all of us. It was me singing. I had never sounded the way or heard myself sound the way that I sounded when I got to Ardent. I mean, I was in there and I could hear myself breathing and I was like, oh my God, I can hit any note that I want to. This is, the control atmosphere of having it and just being able to experiment and freak out. It was just so inspiring and so fun. But as we were talking about that, I just was listening to what he was going through and I was like, God, this was really a challenge. And that was a huge experience for him. When we think about it now, we're like, hey, it was really fun and we got on the road and recorded, but just getting there was a big deal, and it was a big.
How old were you when you signed your record contract?
I think I was probably 18.
Wow.
18 or let's see. Yeah, 18 or 19, right in that area. So we had been messing around with Ardent a little bit before that. So I probably met him when I was 17, probably something like that.
Sure.
And we worked on the record. The record came out in 89. So I still wasn't even legal. Like some of the places I went, I could go in and do sound check and I'd have to leave. They were like, this dude's underage. He can't be sitting around in here while y'all are partying. The other guys are a couple of years older than me.
Yeah.
And I can remember like looking in the window of the bar and they're in there, hey, toast. And I'm like, oh man. But that's what you had a rider for.
Yeah.
You could get your stuff later on down the line. But it was fun. We all grew up, together on the road. And that was a big experience. We took 3 of our friends as our crew guys. So it was 7 of us. And we were like a little group of Vikings, man. We got in a van, a little 15-passenger van, and we tore out. And we just went on these crazy adventures, man. We ran into all these characters on the road. And we, of course, had additional crew people that would show up, sound people, and we had a merch person and a light person that traveled with us. We ended up eventually getting to the point where we went from the van to a van and a trailer and a van and a crew truck and with the equipment in it. And then finally we got to the bus and a crew truck, and that was pretty huge. I mean, when that happened, we just looked and went, oh my God, we can get some sleep finally. We hadn't been to bed in forever. We've been driving forever, but I was probably the luckiest one out of everybody. Since I was the youngest, I wasn't covered under insurance. So they only came to me in an emergency to drive. And most of the time I'd swerve a couple of times and they'd freak out and go, Anthony's been drinking, get him out behind the wheel, or whatever it was. And so I didn't have to drive that much. I was kind of got off lucky that way. But, some days you just wanted to do it. It would just zone you out and you'd be like, man, I don't care. I'll take a shift and just freak out. And, it was so fun. We were really lucky, and we're still friends with all the crew guys. We still see them. We're lucky that way. And, it was like getting hit by lightning, man. Just being totally honest with you. It was like being in a movie. We couldn't believe it. And I remember, I say this in the Storytellers, acoustic thing. We were doing what everybody else was doing on Saturday night. We were sitting there watching Headbangers Ball. And all of a sudden, one weekend, we look up and it's freaking Tora Tora is on the Headbangers Ball. And I mean, it's just so unbelievable. It's just like one of those moments. It's like hearing your song on the radio the first time. You just go, oh my God, our song is getting broadcast out to everybody. This is crazy. People are going to get a chance to hear what we've been working on. And so MTV was huge for us. And we were very lucky. A&M, we signed with them because they seemed the most genuinely excited, and the people that kind of hung out with us, I think there was 6 labels that got in a bidding war for the band, and Brian Huttenhauer was at our warehouse one night. We had played and done a showcase, and a lot of the record company people came, and because that we were in this warehouse, we were in a big strip of warehouses all lined up next to each other. So when we threw a party, we had to clean the parking lot up before 5 a.m. because the 18-wheelers would start pulling in to the other docks. Yep. And so John had a pickup, and we would throw one of the big barrels in the back, and we'd go around and grab all the beer bottles and pizza boxes and all that stuff. And Brian Huttenhauer stayed. He got in the truck with us, in the bed of the truck, and we're all, partying, and we're riding around and laughing about the show and all that stuff. And he was sitting there laughing and talking with us. And so when we went to Ardent to sit down and have a meeting, they were like, there was a bunch of people there. They shook hands with you. What did you think? And we were like, oh, we partied. It was, and they go, no, you know, the record people, what'd you think? And we said, well, we like Brian. He stuck around and hung out with us till, you know, 2 or 3 in the morning or whatever. And that kind of sealed the deal for us. We just knew that he was kind of a genuine person, and nothing against the other people. They were nice, but he just seemed a little more invested. And he was a junior A&R person at the time, but his projects were Extreme, Soundgarden, and we were his third band.
Okay.
And so those other bands were a little more established and having success, and that gave us leverage. You know, I didn't think of it like that when I was a little kid, but as I've grown up in the industry and all that kind of stuff, we realized how important that was. And they were using their other artists to give us leverage. They had Janet Jackson and Sting and Sheryl Crow and all these other people that were huge. And so when we were trying to get radio ads or get some exposure, promotional activities or something, they could use some of the leverage they had with those other people. Yeah. And definitely on MTV, they helped us because we got to the point where we got some promotion on there, and we ended up getting outside of Headbangers Ball into their countdown. You know, they would have a countdown usually, I think, Hard 60 and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, we ended up, our song would go #1 on there.
Yeah.
Or we would go and host the show. You know, those were things that were available that they had made happen through their other relationships and stuff. So it was just mind blowing, you know. And I still stay in touch with some of the guys that were from A&M. Some of them have retired out, but we had such a fun time because it was still an independent label back then. They hadn't sold to Polygram until the middle of our first record, so they didn't switch over to being more of a corporate thing till then.
Right.
And so we built some great relationships, and we stayed busy. We told them, we said, look, we'll work. We don't mind going and playing the little honky tonks and all that stuff. We'll go and play wherever you want us to. And of course, we were afforded opportunities to be on all the big festivals and things like that because of the other bands that they were shopping around. So that got us onto that circuit. And
didn't you go out with LA Guns and Dangerous Toys?
Yeah, and that was during Cocked and Loaded, and it was Dangerous Toys' first record too. We kind of came out, I think Jason and I are still friends. We laugh about it. I think we were about a week or a week and a half apart, our records coming out.
Yeah.
You know? And that is probably one of my favorite tours that we did. LA Guns had been out for a while and they were established. Cocked and Loaded was out. Ballad of Jane was happening.
Yep.
Right in the middle of all that. And we were brand new to touring at the kind of capacity. They were playing 2,000 seat theaters.
Yeah.
So it was rooms with like red chairs and chandeliers. I mean, we walked in, we go, we're in the wrong building. But this isn't our spot. And then they were like, no, you're doing this everywhere. This is going to be your whole tour for the next 8 weeks is going to be like these big rooms.
Yeah.
And it was so fun. We started out in Dayton, Ohio. I'll never forget it. And they came in and somebody knocked on my door and said, hey, come to the lobby at 7:00, you know, and I was like, okay, they're probably going to lay the ground rules or whatever. And when we went down there, all the bands were there. The crew and bands and they had their drinks up and they said, man, get ready for the next crazy 8 weeks of your life. You know, we're fixing to have a great time. And we just went, oh my God, this is going to be so fun.
Yeah.
They were very cool. And we kind of clicked with the Dangerous Toys guys because they were from Texas and we were from Tennessee. We had a Southern thing going on. And
I had Jason on just a couple months ago.
Dude, he's incredible. And his voice still sounds amazing. He looks exactly the same. I don't know how he does it. And
you kind of don't look like you've really aged. I'm serious.
Oh man, I got some mileage on here, man.
Well, anyway.
But I got to see them this year get inducted to the Metal Hall of Fame at NAMM. I was there representing the Memphis record pressing. I'm a ambassador and kind of do artist and label relations for indie labels and indie artists that want to print vinyl.
Yeah.
And so I went out to do that. And it just so happened the day that I was there for a couple of days, they were going to be inducted. And so I got to go in and see Jason and them. And they're just great people. They sound amazing. He's one of the hardest working guys in the business, man. Totally. He's been sitting in with Armored Saint and freaking Dirty Looks. And he did the, what's his name? Wolfspan. You know who I'm talking about. Except. Yeah.
Hoffman.
And anyway, we catch up from time to time. I've seen him here in Nashville. He came in for the Rock and Pod thing and then probably, I guess that was the last time I saw him.
Yeah.
I catch him on the Monsters of Rock cruise too. We get to spend some time on together on there. It's really
Sure.
hectic, but a lot of fun. And but those are memories. The LA Guns and Dangerous Toys was a great one, and then we did the Cult and Bonham. That was a
That's
really
right.
big one.
The
So that was a
Colt, the
lot of
Colt,
fun.
that was at their high point. I mean, on Sonic Temple.
Yes,
I
it
mean,
was huge. We walked in. We played where the Houston Summit, where they played basketball. I'll never forget it. And we were the opening band, and so people were still coming in. But I remember the lights going down, and it got black. In the room, you're standing there, and you're kind of done your warm ups, and you're ready, and all that stuff. And the lights went down, and I just heard the audience, you know. And as I'm looking around, I could see the doorways. They were about this big, and it looked like ants. The music had gone down, the lights went down, and people were just filing in. And I walked out on stage, man, and the light hit the spotlight from the top of the building, hit me in the eyes. And I just went, I want to do this the rest of my life. This is
yeah.
the most amazing feeling. And even if people were still kind of filing in, the crowd was responsive, and we're on this huge stage. And, what was amazing about that is we got to play our hometown Coliseum, the one I was telling you earlier about, where we had seen Van Halen and AC/DC and everybody. And at sound check, I walked out, the room's empty, and I'm standing on the stage, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm on the other side. This is incredible. It was just so crazy and just like a full circle kind of moment. But that one was probably one of the biggest things that we did. We played a lot of festivals in front of big audiences.
Yeah.
Just because of our tour schedule, we would be routed into those kind of things. And we played with a lot of people go, who's your favorite people to play with? Those that we mentioned were highlights, but we played it with everybody. I mean, we did a party one night, and it was the Rip magazine anniversary party.
Yeah.
And we walked in the building, and like when you were walking backstage, the very first room said Van Halen, and the next room said Bon Jovi, and I mean, we were walking through going, "Oh my God, man, we're freaking in the building with these people,"
Yeah.
And we don't even think we had a dressing room. I think we stayed on our bus that night, as our dressing room. But
Yeah.
that was incredible. I mean, we played the Palladium. It was a beautiful room. It had big chandeliers. I flew my parents out, my sister, and everybody was there. I mean, it was like one of those moments where you just go, man, this is like, we're with the top people. I mean, this is the, pinnacle for a second for us.
And then you got a song on Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I mean,
Yeah.
that ought to be a thrill.
That was a lot of fun. And it was the timing was, I think, what worked in our favor. That A&M was doing the soundtrack. And
Yeah.
so Extreme was on there. They had selected the songs or something, and that Dancing with the Gypsy song was one of those first 4 demos that we had done. I think it was like Love's a Bitch and Phantom Rider,
Yep.
Dancing with the Gypsy, and there was Riverside Drive, I think was the other one. And they just said, hey, we want to take one of your songs and put it in the movie. And we were like, oh my God, that'd be crazy. I can't even imagine that. But it's been a lot of fun through the years. And one of my favorite thoughts on that is, a couple of years ago, I had a birthday. My son gave me the Wild Stallions record that was from the movie, and it had our song on it. He said, he goes, I contacted the record label to get the record from them, and they sent it to me because you were my dad. They say, I told them I was giving it to you for your birthday. So
Wow.
that's a really great memory. And a lot of people have asked us about it, and it's just awesome to be a part of something. That movie ended up turning into something, incredible. It just built on top of itself. So that was very lucky, but that was definitely another A&M connection, that we had an end through those guys. And just a lot of stuff, man. I mean, when I'm talking to you, things just flash through your head. I remember getting a bus. When we got a bus, that was one of the moments where we just said, oh my God, this is huge. We were at the Bayou in Washington, D.C., and the doors of the building were open, and the people were setting up and everything. And I had a fanny pack on. People used to wear those all the time. They had like my cigarettes and, whatever kind of other stuff I had in there.
Yeah.
And I walked out to get a cigarette, and I was sitting there lighting, and I kind of looked down the street, and about 2 blocks down, a Silver Eagle bus turned the corner, and the guy had just washed it. It was like glistening, the sunlight was hitting it. And I just turned around and with the doors open and just went, the bus is here, and just yelled at everybody. And we all, of course, rushed out and met it before it even stopped to, stop rolling. And this guy came walking down the steps. He was a bigger guy. His name was Jim. And through the window, he just said, F you, man. Like he could see our eyes or this big around. We were just standing there, ready to attack. And he opened the door and he goes, "This is your home. You're going to respect this." He goes, "I already know. I just dropped off a bunch of hip hop guys. You're going to settle yourself down before we said, "Oh God, yeah, we're going to be cool and everything's chill."
Yeah.
But immediately when we got on there, we just went, "Oh my God, we got a party rolling on wheels and we're going across the country." And it was just the most. And he ended up being a huge teddy bear. I mean, he kind of had to lay the law down right at the beginning because he was like, "You can't be spilling crap. This is your house and you live here." And he laid a couple of ground rules out for us, but he ended up being an awesome guy. And we had some of the biggest adventures. I mean, we went through from him to other buses and other drivers and all that, and they were all killer. And each
How
one
many
of them
shows did you play on that first tour on Surprise Attack, do you think?
Man, we toured for almost 2 years on that album. I mean, and we were steady. I don't really probably have a amount, but
Sure.
it was up there.
But
It was
for close to 2 years.
Oh yeah. And I mean, back then we would do 11 shows in a row,
Yeah.
and then take a day off. And we were little and you could be resilient and
Yeah.
stay up all night,
Yeah.
and wake up at noon or something the next day and go, "I'm ready to do it again. Let's Saturday night again. Let's do Saturday night every night." And
Yeah.
like I said, we didn't want to stop. And normally they would take us it would normally go 6 to 8 weeks. And then we'd go home. And back then I was still living with my parents. I'd go home and my grandparents were staying with us. I would see all them, sleep for like 2 or 3 days, and then get up and eat for about 2 or 3 days. And then I go, "Okay, I'm ready to go."
Yeah.
I'm recharged and ready. And it was just such an incredible adventure. We just very lucky.
The Surprise Attack went to number 47 on Billboard. Walking Shoes was a decent size hit. Do you guys, and maybe you and the record company, feel confident going into the second record? Are you like, here we go, this is the one?
Right. And that's when A&M sold to Polygram.
Yeah.
So we shifted companies, and it was funny. I was talking to Keith about this years later. I remember going into markets and we were doing in stores and all that, and people would come up and go, "I can't find your record." And we said, "Oh man, this is amazing. We sold all the records in this place. This is killer." But it hadn't. What they did is they returned all the A&M stuff to put the Polygram logo on it and put it back out. So we missed a lot of opportunities because of that transition. It just affected us in our record cycle. It didn't land on us like it did other people that had transitioned in between projects or whatever.
Yeah.
So that one hurt a little bit on the sales side. And the momentum of the second single was really kind of funny. We actually shot 2 videos for Guilty.
Okay.
We shot one in the airplane graveyard out in Arizona, which was amazing. They built a set with our logo on it. We had dancing girls on the airplanes and, lights flashing everywhere. And it got rejected by A&M. They said, "We don't like the way it looks. We're going to do another one." So they waited for us while we were on tour on the West Coast, coming down through Los Angeles. And they said, "Hey, on your day off, you're going to sneak in this warehouse and they're going to shoot a video. We already got everything set up." And so we went in and did that. And that ended up being the one that came out on MTV. And, years later, we had access to some of the footage that still had like maybe the timeline script underneath it.
Yep.
And we put that on YouTube. We have to be careful because of ownership and copyright and all that. But we did it in a way where I think it was okay and safe. And just so people could kind of get an idea of what we talked about. Back then, shooting videos was really expensive.
Yeah.
And there's no telling what our budget was on that.
Oh.
And I mean, we stayed for a few days and I flew my parents. My dad was there with me because I had downtime. And I was like, "I want you to come out here and see what we're doing." He worked for the airlines for 32 years. And I said, "You got to come out here and see all these airplanes and where I'm going to do this." And, but anyway, that was a huge chunk of our budget, which, in hindsight was recoupable. It was money that we spent and then we're going to have to pay that back no matter if it gets used or not. And, so anyway, that was a little bit of a shift. And then of course we shot Phantom Rider. That was out near California City, out in a desert, in a lake bed out there. And by then we were kind of trailing off. That was probably the Cult and Bonham was probably in 1990.
Yeah.
And then we were doing club dates after that. So
Yeah.
that was while we were out supporting that one. And then, we started writing Wild America while we were still touring. And we worked on that record for almost 2 years. It didn't come out until that was in 89 and 90. We were on the road. And then 91 and 92, we were still playing dates, but they were more spread out.
3 years was kind of a big wait back then.
It was
Between
huge.
albums.
A lot of people talked to us about that and said, man, in traditional kind of settings, you were letting one out a year and just kind of going in your cycle.
Right.
So for us to wait, but it was, it was a big learning experience for us. And we wrote tons of songs. We probably wrote 60 songs for each one of those records and had to whittle it down to 20 and then really get serious about 10 of them or 12 of them, depending on if you're going to have a bonus track or whatever. So it was a lot of work. And, but we were a little more confident on Wild America. I think it was because we had become better at our instruments.
Oh,
We
sure.
had a little more confidence. We had toured. Patrick and John were just meshed together, man, with the bass and drums. And John was like a freaking machine with the click track now. He got to where once he got on it and he realized, like, he goes, we would jump out on stage and our adrenaline's going. He would go, we're going to do the whole set in like 15 minutes, man. Y'all are going 10 times as fast as the song's supposed to go. So he would rein us in, and he'd say, we're going to lock it in. And he literally had a click track, headphone thing with him to say, I'm going to make sure we're going to, even if he didn't wear it the whole song, he would say, I'm going to get us in the pocket.
Yeah.
And, but he really got on it where, he's at the point nowadays where, when we did Bastards of Bill, in 2018, 2019, that area, he put his phone on a music stand next to his drums. He didn't have the click track going. He would just watch the tempo. And if it was supposed to be 150, he would sit on like 75 beats a minute. He would be just sitting there. And it doesn't interfere with how he's playing. He's just like locked in now,
Right.
And he also, one thing I will say, we're on here to kind of promote stuff. He has a project called Fever Tree that's, they're a little bit more progressive. We're more straight ahead in the tour camp, but they are incredible musicians. I've known the singer. We used to share jam rooms with them in Tora days, Tim, and he's an incredible singer. And Mike and the bass player, they're all incredible. If anybody's listening or watching, please go support them and check them out. They're really awesome. But they've been doing that almost 10 years, I think. And so John,
Okay.
yeah, they had a song a while back called Muddy Jesus. They got a lot of attention. It was really good. But anyway, he keeps his chops up with them. He plays with them a lot. And they're a little more technical. So he's really working on his drumming all the time. So that's been helpful to us. When we get together, he's already locked in and feels good. And so that's amazing. And one other plug I'd like to make for Keith, he has a solo project. It's an instrumental record called Remnants of Euphoria. And he's always wanted to do this. We talked a while back and he had some music and he said, I'm not sure what Tora's doing or how we're going to end up getting together and working on stuff. But he goes, I got my studio sounding really good. I got it dialed in. And he goes, I'm just really inspired and I've always wanted to do this. And so he did some of the stuff. He sent me a couple of the tracks and I just was blown away. I went, oh my God, this is so cool. And, but anyway, I think he's done it. He had a song on YouTube that you can go check out. And I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on the title of it right now, but Remnants of Euphoria, if you put that in Keith Douglas' name, it'll pop up.
I'll try to put the link in the description so people.
Yeah, please do that. That would be amazing. And
Yeah.
I think he printed some vinyl and stuff like that. It's really kind of exclusive stuff. If you're a Tora fan, it would be something you would definitely want to collect. And, anyway, the records have been so fun to go back and listen to those. The Wild America, era was just different. And we worked with John Hampton from Ardent, and then a guy, Sir Arthur Payson, came in at the end and did some remix stuff. And that one was a lot of fun, and we love the songs on there. That's probably my favorite project.
I love that album. When you were recording Wild America, I'm assuming that's when grunge is starting to hit, whatever you want to call it, Nirvana and everything. Like, did that impact you guys? Were you like, uh-oh, or were you just like, hey, here's another type of music? Like, what did you?
No, I mean, I think we were feeling the pressure from ourselves. Like
Yeah.
the first record had done fairly well. Our sales and everything were great, and we were satisfied with it. And but when that was going on, we were so focused on our personal stuff and the
Yeah.
recording and all that. We could feel it. We heard the conversations going and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And honestly, we played with a lot of these guys. Like we played shows with Alice in Chains. I remember meeting them, and we didn't think they were different. We just said it's just another rock band,
Yeah.
that night. Not meaning they're just another rock band, but in the overall big view of it, I mean,
Yes.
Lane's voice was incredible, and they were super cool cats. I remember walking in to a little club and seeing their T-shirt hanging on the wall, and I was like, "Alice in Chains." I wonder what that's going to sound like. What is that? Because we played with all kind of different bands, and every night we would meet people that were telling us, what they were doing and getting into, and
Yeah.
we played with the Black Crows when they were called Mr. Crow's Garden, and they told us they were going to go on tour with Aerosmith, and we were like, man, this is crazy. These two guys, they sound like the Rolling Stones, and they're telling. We were in the dressing room, and they were sound checking or whatever, and they're going to do something with with Aerosmith. And the next thing I knew, the local DJ that I was telling you about, Malcolm Riker, he called us and said, "Have you heard this band? They're from Georgia, and they covered Otis Redding, 'Hard to Handle.' Have you heard this song?" He goes, "They're going to be huge, and they're going to open up for Aerosmith." And we're like, "Oh my God, it's those guys from Atlanta. They're going to do this thing." And but they were really down to earth. They were really cool. But we saw people like that every night. And
Yeah.
the grunge thing, we just never thought of it. We just said they're kind of heavy, and
Yeah.
we didn't realize it was going to have the kind of impact that it did. I mean, it was very evident to us more on that third record. Like we had kind of been out and been in on tour and kind of felt what was going on in the overall music community in general. And we were like, this is different, man. This feels different. So by the time we went in to do that third record, we were feeling a lot of pressure. We were like, man, we got to do something really that's going to keep our identity, but yet be something different than we've already put out. But not feel like we're jumping on the backside of the, now I'm going to be, a grunge person.
Yeah.
And that was hard. Yeah, it was a blessing and a curse. We never really went out to LA and lived and rented studios and were part of the Sunset Strip. We were kind of an outlier being in Memphis, and we stayed rooted there. And from that perspective, I think that was in our benefit, kind of, is we kind of could hang on to our identity, and that we were kind of in our hometown and doing our own thing, and we were kind of isolated. And in that third record, I felt like we had matured a lot, and I loved the songs that were on it. We worked on them for a long time and changed them, and we did a ton of pre-production. We always would try to get everything fixed before we got in, so we didn't waste any time in the studio. But we were lucky in the sense that we were signed to a production deal with Ardent. So if we wanted to cut demos, we could go in there and cut a really high quality demo to see if this song was worth pursuing and really putting towards the project. So
I want to show you something.
Okay.
It's hanging on my. I'm going to pull this off. This is the original ad. You played Fargo, North Dakota.
Oh, I remember this.
With Warrant and
Yes.
Mom.
Yes, man. Yeah.
And I have the ticket, and I have the ad that was probably, I don't know where I got it at, but
that was fun, man. We had a great time with those guys. Just recently, and George won't remember this, but I played shows with George Lynch and sang some Dokken songs with him.
Okay.
It was back in August. I went and did like 4 shows. They're doing a thing called The Rise of the Decades, and it's Terry from XYZ and George Lynch and Brett from Great White. And the promoter person that was putting it on for those shows said, "Hey, do you want to come do a couple of Tora songs with the opening band?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to do that." And he goes, "And then you could jump up and sing some Dokken with George." He said, "I'm going to send you about 5 or 6 songs. I want you to just be prepared if you want to jump up and do it." And so I said, "Let me listen to him, make sure." And I was like, "Are you sure George is cool with it?" But anyway, I went, and they were so nice. They were so fun. And I told him, Jaron, the bass player, I said, "Thank you for making me feel welcome." And he goes, "Man, you are welcome. Just come on." And it was kind of fun because Terry and George have been doing this together for a little while. like I sat in with them last year in Nashville and sang Wicked Sensation at the end. And that's kind of what led to these other shows.
Yeah.
And but when I got up, they were kind of already together for a long time. So I was kind of with the bass player and the rhythm guitar player. I was kind of hanging in the back. And Terry just goes, "I'll just point at you when it's your time to come on." Because I was very nervous. I was like, I don't want to step on George. I don't know if he's going to go rogue on his solo or not meaning that in a bad way, but just getting in a groove or something.
Yep.
And he goes, "Don't worry, I'll point at you when it's your time to go." And man, it was so fun. They were George's playing is still incredible. And I literally was standing, at the drum riser, and Terry was jumping around up front, waving at everybody. And I turned to my left, and he's standing with his guitar, just tearing the strings, and I went, "Oh my God, it's freaking George Lynch." It was very inspiring. And they treated me really, really sweet guys, really nice, down to earth. And hopefully, maybe I'll run across them again and get a chance to do that again. That was a lot of fun. And
I don't want to go negative or anything, but I just want and I'm a massive Warrant fan.
Yeah.
And I'm a massive Tora Tora fan, but what happened on the Warrant tour? Because Janie Lane made it 31 shows, I think, and then left. I mean,
I always said we weren't really part of all that. I think of that maybe it was the times that we were in, maybe that was pushing some buttons with them. As far as we knew, we were having a ball with them. I mean, we would come in every night, and George would go, the size venues that we were playing, he would go, some of them were like sports arena size or whatever.
Yeah.
He would go in the dressing room where the showers were, because it had reverb, and he would just sit in there and play, like from the afternoon to showtime. He would just be in there. And we were next door to him, just going, "Oh my God, he's in there like shredding." But I didn't have like a lot of interaction personally with Janie. I mean, we were very friendly, and they were super nice to us the whole time we were there.
You remember when you were told it was over, though?
I think it ended abruptly. I think we were kind of, maybe you said 80 shows or something. We might have done 6 weeks with them or something.
It was 31 show, or at least 31 shows that they end. I mean, that became a huge problem with Warrant. There was all sorts of anyway. I mean, we're not talking about. I just
and it's not negative to me. I mean, it's the experience we had was amazing. Everybody on the tour was nice to us, and I think we just kind of got word that it was going to kind of abruptly kind of stop, and then we just said, "Oh, okay, well then we're moving into the next club dates or whatever else we got going on." So
I see.
But we still see those guys at like M3 and the Monsters Rock and all that, and they're super nice. They're still doing it and banging it out, and they're busy, man. They're doing a bunch of shows. They're
totally
keeping it going.
You talked about Revolution Day. So Wild America, I think, went to number 134. I mean, it's a great record. You start recording Revolution Day.
Yeah.
Tom Werman, right?
Yeah. That was amazing.
I'm gonna interview him on Tuesday.
Tell him that I asked about him. I haven't talked to him in probably 30 years. I haven't seen him in a long time. We did our thing together, and then pretty quickly after he was with us, we realized that we were going to not get the record put out. So that was pretty hard. But we had a ball. I used to drag him around all over Memphis and let him see everybody singing. And, when we were home, I probably got more rowdy at home than I did on the road, because I didn't have a road manager or somebody keeping me in check. So I know I drug him out to some late night honky tonks.
Yeah.
But he was awesome. He had Eddie was his engineer that traveled with him. And we did a really fun record. I mean, it's a little darker than the other records. But he did a great job, and it sounded amazing. But I remember getting the call from the management company, and they said, "Hey, it's not, if your record's coming out, it's not going to come out. They're going to shelve it." And I was probably 24. That was a pretty big hit. I didn't know what I was going to do. I ran to Bill Street. I had a really good friend that was a soul singer, James Govan, on Bill Street. And I went to see him that day, and I walked in. I said, "I don't know what I'm going to do. This record company deal is probably going to go away." And he said, "Man, you're a singer, man. You're going to do more recording and play with some more music." And, I mean, he just had this whole calm about him. I was like, I guess he had been through the industry so long, But I was like, "Yeah, give me a cigarette, James, and let's sit down and talk about it, And but kind of a calm came over me for a minute, and I just said, maybe I got to rethink what I'm doing. And in hindsight, I think everything happened the way it was supposed to. there was some other things going on with the band at the time. Keith was the only one of us married. He had a new son. I think he was thinking about maybe not touring. So that was kind of, wasn't sure if he wanted to go back out on the road. So we never had any kind of big, huge blowout. We were all, kind of friendly about what happened.
Yeah.
But basically we said, hey, let's take a break. And the next time we get together, we'll figure out what's going on. And the next time we got together was like 7 years. Yeah. It was a long time before we played a show again.
The Revolution Day, so FNA put out the demos for Revolution Day, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We gained some access to some of the material, and through contracts and stuff, we couldn't do master recordings to let it out. That was owned by A&M, but we had some access to some of the demo recordings and stuff.
Is there, would there be any way to get the masters, or I don't know if that's,
I think that would be, it'd be kind of interesting. Universal had some fires. All of our stuff ended up under the Universal umbrella. Yeah. Yeah, there's are some existing masters around. I'm sure Ardent's got a copy of them, and
yeah.
I haven't been in their vault in a long time to look around and see what's in there. But I know they kept a lot of our stuff.
Sure.
But some of your things, not the master recordings, but some of the stuff that they had, I know that sometimes they would rebundle the tape for something. So that could have happened to some of our stuff. I don't know. But we were satisfied with the thing that we had. And the material, I kind of talked to John Fry because we had done that production deal. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was working in the music industry. I was like, I definitely don't want to do something super unethical. But I said, is there a way I could kind of be in a gray area just to get the music out? Because we were hearing recordings on the internet, and it was from somebody who had done a cassette burn of it. Yeah. And the tempos were too fast. I sounded like Mickey Mouse. I mean, my voice is high anyway, but we were like, it was kind of distorted sounding. We said, can we just get a good copy out online and then maybe just do a small pressing to satisfy people that were interested in it? And it was very successful through Steve and FNA. He had a lot of people asking about it, just because we had talked about it so many times and nobody had really got to hear what it sounded like. And so that's good. And listen, I know I don't want to keep you too long on this call, but I wanted to say a couple of things. Some of the outtake things that we had are on this project, Best of the Rest. Mm-hmm. These are some outtakes. And we put this together maybe before Keith did his independent record. So it's been out for a minute. But there's 4 songs on here for your people watching or listening. Yeah. If we go through our collection, we had Surprise Attack, Wild America, Revolution Day. And then in 2018, 2019, we let out Bastards of Bill on Frontiers. Yep. So go check those out, please. But this is the latest one. It has 4 songs on it: Trip the Light Fantastic, Little Girl Blue, Go Where the Love Is, and Neptune Society. And if you get a chance, maybe check out Neptune Society on your show, that one, or Trip the Light Fantastic. These are ones that we're wondering if anybody's had a chance to listen to them. But the rest of the songs on here are all outtakes from demo things that we have. So there's 17 songs on this project. If you're
where can you get that?
You can go to Right Rock Sportswear /Tora Tora. They're our merch company. If you want to put that in the notes here,
it'll be in there.
Or they can direct message me. I'll send them a link. You can find us at Tora Tora Band on all your social media sites, or you can write us at toratorarocks@gmail.com. Yeah. If you want to check us out that way, we answer the emails to as we get to them. But on social media, it's all the guys in the band. We can all see it, so we're all talking on there. And I'd really love to continue the conversation, man. That the story of Bastards of Bill is unbelievable. Bastards of Bill was amazing. We did it with Frontiers Records, who's out of Italy, and they specialized in 80s rock stuff. A lot of our friends had been on there. I heard about them probably 20 years ago. Jimmy Jameson had done some work with them from Survivor. That's right. And but they contacted us through social media. They wrote us on Twitter, and they said, hey, we're wondering if you want to make a new record. We go, man, this is somebody smoking weed or something. It's not even real. Yeah. And we said, why don't we do some research? And I said, if you can find a phone number, I'll call them. And we ended up getting a phone number. They had one U.S. rep, a guy named Nick Teeter, and he had a New Jersey area code. So I called it, and I said, hey, this is Anthony with Tora Tora. I think you guys reached out to us. And he goes, man, I really want to talk to you. He goes, I literally have a box in my hand. I'm moving. And he said, can I call you in 5 minutes? I'll call you right back. And I said, yeah. And as I was hanging up, I just said, hey, where are you moving? And he goes, Nashville.
No way.
I literally said, what part of town? I'll buy you a cup of coffee. It was one exit from my house.
No
I
way.
literally drove up the street, walked into a little coffee shop. He walked in and he looked at me and he said, man, I walked to the record store to buy your record, Surprise Attack, when I was a little kid. He said, I want to know if you want to make a new record. And we went, yeah, we want to do it. I just immediately, I said, I want to do this. And we recorded it at Sam Phillips Recording Service, which if your listeners or people watching don't know Sam Phillips, he discovered, Roy Orbison and Carl Perkins, Johnny Cash, dude named Elvis,
Yeah.
Howlin' Wolf, all these people. I mean, music, the way we know it in the world would not exist if there wasn't that guy. So it was amazing. And what was super cool is Sam Phillips owns Sun Studios and he sold it to RCA Records at the end of the 50s, kind of. And when he did, he went on the same street down the block and he bought an auto garage and he stripped it down to the studs and he built his dream studio. And he built the echo chamber. You can't take any pictures in there, but we recorded the record there. And I swear it looked like he was going to walk in any second. It was like checkerboard floor, seafoam green walls, red shag carpet about this deep.
Yeah.
It was so inspiring. Everybody from Bob Dylan to Robert Plant, all the soul singers, the rock and roll people, they've all recorded there. So there was this vibe about it. And we recorded that record live. It wasn't like the Revolution Days and Wild America and all that. Those were year-long projects. We went in 8 days, we recorded a record.
Yeah.
They put the band in the room and they put me in a little vocal booth. And they said, if you get the vocals, great. If you don't, we'll come back and sing them later. Yeah. But we recorded that record live. And I mean, the very first song on the record is the very first song we sat down and started playing. Yeah. And it was called Sons of Zebedee. And it was that community song. Like our fans, we had gone out on the Monsters of Rock cruise and we bumped into a bunch of people on there that were 80s Rocks fans. And all these stories and things started percolating in our head, and as we were doing this project with them, we're like, man, the fans are really helping us write this record, And so that first one was about us just rocking out, and it was about everybody being included, and it was about us being, like I think that meaning of that Sons of Zebedee is like Sons of Thunder. It was like something I had read about or something, and I was like, this is it. We kind of come in and we're going to just blow this place up, and these people are all coming with us. But we kind of kicked the record off with that. But it was just an inspiring, the whole time we recorded. I saved singing until one weekend. We had to turn it in August for it to come out on the Monsters of Rock in February, 6 months later.
Yeah.
And so I'm getting ready to go down there, and they call me, and they said, Anthony, we got a problem. William Bell, a Stax recording artist, wants to have the studio the day you're coming. And I was like, no problem, just give it to him. And they go, we're going to come to Nashville and you're going to sing it. And I said, nope, this is a Memphis record. I'm not singing it in Nashville. We'll come to your house. We'll set up our microphone. I said, nope, I'm coming to Memphis. So I said, let's just figure it out when I get down there. So let me really quickly, before we get off the call, the first floor is the studios, 2 studios. The second floor, you get on the stairs and go up. It used to be their distribution center, so it's where all the office cubicles and all that stuff would have been. It's empty now, and there's just one couch, red, white, and blue, that Jack White repurposed and put in there. And so we took a bunch of pictures. If you look at that era, we're all over that. We're taking pictures and stuff. Then as you walk out, all the publishing awards, Walk the Line, Johnny Cash, and all that are on the wall. You're kind of walking by. Then as you look up to the third floor, there's a little secretary desk built into the wall that's sitting there. Sam's office is shut. You can't take any pictures or anything. His office is there. And then there's a 50s bar that's decorated. You can go up and make yourself a drink. It's still stocked and everything. And it's got burns on the counter where they got hammered and just left their cigarettes sitting there and burned everything up. So I go to Memphis, 3-hour drive. I walk in. Jeff Powell, who had worked on Wild America, was our engineer. We've known him for 30 years. He comes out and he said, hey, I need to talk to you. Come upstairs. And I said, oh my God, I can hear the organ playing in the other room. William Bell's in there. I'm like getting chill bumps. I'm like, it's him. He's in here. He goes, come upstairs. I got to tell you something. And I was like, they're going to take me to the bar and give me a drink and tell me I'm not singing. I just drove down here. I'm pissed, So I'm going up the stairs. And when I turn the corner to go to the third floor, Sam's office is open and my microphone is sitting in the room. I sang the whole record sitting in his office. I'm not kidding. It was so inspiring. His desk is sitting there. It's got a jukebox built into it, and it's exactly the way it was the day he passed away. No,
Yeah.
no touch.
Sure.
The jukebox is sitting there where he'd have the 45s playing and call everybody and tell them the new Carl Perkins or Elvis song was out.
Yeah.
And then there was two white leather chairs with a skinny little 70s ashtray next to each one. And above it is a picture. And it's those chairs, Elvis and Sam smoking cigars and girls sitting in their lap. And I'm like, this is where they were partying, man. They're sitting right here. And then behind me, there's a 50s console TV that's got little legs about this tall. And there's a drawer pulled out, and there's a Roy Orbison 45 sitting on there. And that's where they were playing their records. And so in between every take, I would look, man, this is where they were hanging out. I sang 11 songs in there in 2 days. It was so inspiring. It was just, I couldn't believe it. Jeff Powell had called the family and he said, Anthony wants to record and we don't have a spot. Can he record in the, and so, I mean, they ran chords and all kind of stuff up there. He had his laptop set up and when I walked in the door, but it was so fun. And I think it translates on that record. It's really live. It's close to what we seeing us live sounds like. And we just had a ball. We were super nervous. We hadn't had new music in 25 years or something since 94.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge experience, very inspiring. I still see Jeff all the time. He's amazing. And so that kind of catches you up. We went through those first 4 records, and then we have this one now. This is just a compilation that's out. And Keith's solo project and John's Fever Tree project. And then, of course, I'm doing the acoustic stuff. That you can find me at Anthony Corder Official on YouTube.
Okay.
If anybody watching or listening is interested in me doing a storyteller show, just reach out to me on our social media. You can direct message me, or you can write toratorarocks@gmail.com, and I'll answer you back on there.
Okay.
And the main thing is, I just want to tell you, thank you for letting me talk to you. This has been amazing. It brings back a lot of great memories, and we'll have to do a follow-up or something where we can really dig into the Revolution Day and the Bastards of Bill stuff. It's a lot of fun, and we have new music that we're working on. I saw Keith. We've got some music that's in the can that he and I just need to sit down and go through the writing process, to make sure everything's good. But so hopefully, maybe beginning of next year or something, we might have something out in time to promote and have a show. I would encourage anybody watching, if you've never come to Memphis to see us play, it's a great place to come and check us out. So,
hey, you just seem like one of the good guys in rock. I've watched a bunch of your interviews. You're always so polite and so positive. It makes it easy to root for you. I will put all your social media and all the things for the projects you talked about will be in the description. Anthony Corder, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man. I'll do this anytime, man. You take care of yourself.
Absolutely. You too. Take care.